On today's show, Turkiye advances to the Eurobasket semifinals behind a dominant defensive performance against Poland and a historic triple-double in one of Alperen Sengun's best passing games of his entire career. We're going to break it all down for you right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Another day, another win for the 12 Giant men. Ne haber ve hoş geldiniz. What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets and Turkiye basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube, just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down Turkiye's 91-77 win against Poland in the quarterfinals, advancing to the semifinals round of the Eurobasket tournament. Well, they will have a date with none other than Giannis Antetokounmpo and Greece. Should make for a very, very fun matchup. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the episode. We're going to be breaking down Turkiye's dominant defensive performance against Poland. Alperen Sengun making history once again. I'm never going to get tired of saying it, but it seems like we talk about it all the time. Alperen Sengun once again making history as the youngest player to earn a triple-double in Eurobasket history. We'll talk about the impact of certain players like James Hazer, his defense in this game. Shane Larkin showing up big time in the fourth quarter. A lot to get into on today's show. And of course, want to thank you for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Where we have to start with this one, and I really actually debated, and I went back and forth between look, another game, another player of the match award for Alperen Sengun. That's 7 straight player of the match trophies that he's won. He is far and away the favorite to walk away as the Eurobasket MVP at this stage. And this game just continued to add to his resume. Arguably, like, I've watched every game that Alperen Sengun has participated in for the last 4+ years of his career. Every European game, every FIBA game, every Rockets game, every game that he's participated in. This might be the best passing clinic that he put on in this one against Poland. He finished with a historic triple-double. Again, the youngest player to record a triple-double in Eurobasket history, with 19 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, had 3 steals mixed in there. The offensive efficiency wasn't great for LP in this game. He did get to the free throw line a lot, was 7 of 9 there, but just 6 of 14 overall shooting in this game. So the offensive efficiency not quite all the way there. But the passing, man, the passing was otherworldly in this game. The number, and look, he finished with 10 assists. He could have easily had anywhere from like 12, 13, 14. Like, there were a number of great passes that he had that didn't wind up turning into a direct bucket. The one that immediately comes to mind is the ridiculous, I don't even know how to begin to describe it, but the spinning behind the head no-look pass to James Hazer. And James didn't have... Sengun caught all 9 players by surprise on the floor with that pass. I don't think James was ready for it. Nobody knew that pass was coming except for Sengun. And James caught it and didn't have like he couldn't immediately go up with it, unfortunately, so it didn't result in a dime. But there was, that one. There were so many just absolutely elite passes from Alperen Sengun in this game. He had a beautiful outlet pass off a free throw miss to James Hazer in the first half of the game. Poland misses the free throw. He gets the rebound and immediately looks down the court, and just like Bill Walton-esque, or like he was CJ Stroud for the Texans, just launches it down the court, and Hazer collects it, goes up to the rim, gets an easy transition opportunity for two. And then there was another, literally the very next possession. Hazard with some fantastic defense, gets a deflection, recovers the basketball from going out of bounds, kind of gets it back into Alperen Sengun, who runs the break as the big man on the floor, which is just more of the ridiculous stuff that he's capable of. Runs the break and gets a beautiful little, shovel off pass to Sapahi, who scores right at the cup for two. So many great assists for Alpi in this game. He had 10, 6, and 6 at halftime. So he was already flirting with a triple-double by halftime. He had 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists alone in the second quarter of this game, which is where Turkiye really took control and built up their big lead, and then kind of was able to not quite coast to the finish line. We'll talk about some of the back and forth in this game and some of the various points where Poland made a significant push. But this just kind of goes to show you, even in a game where Sengun was scoreless in the first quarter, but he was racking up the dimes. And that's the kind of impact that he has as a player. It doesn't matter if he's not scoring the ball. First off, teams still treat him as a legitimate scoring threat. The reason that he wasn't really effective scoring the ball in this game, and even specifically early on against Poland, is because they were diverting so much defensive attention to Alpi that they weren't paying attention to all these backdoor cuts and backdoor actions and off-ball movement from Alpi's Turkish teammates. And that's what was leading to some of these wide open opportunities where Alpi would be able to very early on, he hit a beautiful face up drive, and then he spun baseline and hit a dish to Osmani, who he flashed into the middle of the paint and just got a perfect little push shot kind of floater wide open, because Poland had committed 2 defenders to trying to slow down Sengun. There was another one where he had the between the legs crossover where he faked out not 1 but 2 defenders, and then gets all the way to the rim, and then just as he's going up for it, as he looks like he's getting ready to go up for it at the rim, he just hands it off to Seamus Hazard, who cut in from the baseline, gets a wide open bucket at the rim. And it's all those opportunities, right, where even though Sengun was scoreless in the first quarter, even though he didn't have the best, most efficient scoring game, he still had his handprints all over this one. And Poland still had to treat him as a legitimate scoring threat. And they still had to commit doubles and triple teams, shading their entire defense over to him at times. And when the game is that tilted towards one player, it makes life so much easier for the other 4 guys out there on the floor. And that's exactly what we saw on display in this game, with just how dominant Alperen Sengun was and how much of a passing clinic he had on display in this one. I want to know from you, dear listener, dear viewer, I want to know your favorite, actually, I can't say favorite assist, because the behind the head spinning ridiculous pass to Seamus Hazard wasn't an assist. It was a pass, since it didn't result in a bucket. But I want to know, what was your favorite pass from Alperen Sengun in this game? Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Alpi continues to make Eurobasket history. Coming up, we'll talk a little bit about the game flow, how Poland just refused to quit in this game, Seamus Hazard's impact being inserted into the starting lineup over Kenan Sapahi, as well as Shane Larkin showing up big time in the fourth quarter of this game. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Look, I'm not personally a big golf guy myself. However, I'll go out to the occasional putt-putt course or hit up a Top Golf, that kind of thing. And most recently, I was at some, playing putt-putt with some friends. And one of my guys, he is a big golfer. And the fact that I was able to sink a hole-in-one on one of the on one of the holes and he just could not get it. I think he was it was a par 3. He just completely flamed out. It took him 6-7 strokes to knock it down, actually. it's always fun to be able to go out there and even if you're not a true blue golfer, but to be able to have a little fun playing some putt, hitting up a top golf, that kind of thing. And look, golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-hour energy transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets and Turkiye basketball. One of the biggest, impacts in this game was Seamus Hazard being inserted into the starting lineup over Kenan Sipahi. And this is this late into the tournament stage to make a legitimate starting lineup change is kind of a ballsy move by Ergin Ataman. And I got to give him credit because it worked out beautifully. And it worked out beautifully for multiple reasons. First off, the reason Seamus was inserted into the starting lineup was to slow down Jordan Lloyd for the Polish team, who's been one of the leading scorers throughout all of Eurobasket. He's been averaging well over 20 points per contest, and Turkiye was able to hold him to just 19 points on 5 of 11 shooting, including 4 turnovers. They had him frustrated. He didn't get anything to come easy in this game. He had to work for every single bucket that he got. He did get to the free throw line 8 times, knocked down all 8 of them, but he was just 1 of 7 from behind the 3-point line. And a big part of that, credit to Seamus, was that point of attack defense, just like playing inside of Lloyd's jersey for so much of this game, giving very little separation, very little room to breathe for him to realistically operate. And it wasn't just Seamus. He was like the tip of the spear defensively to try and slow down Jordan Lloyd, but it was a great team effort. Like there were moments where, Seamus would have to hand off Lloyd to, one of Cedi Osman or Sipahi if he was in the game at the same time, different switches, even occasionally, Osmani being switched out or Sengun getting stuck on a switch out on Jordan Lloyd, once or twice throughout the game. And it didn't matter because the team defensive scheme to slow down Jordan Lloyd worked so beautifully. They were going to force somebody else to beat them. And shout out to Panitka, who did start to heat up as the game went along. He finished with 19 points as well on 6 of 13 shooting. But it wasn't easy for either of them. And again, being able to stop the leading scorer and force another guy to step up, Panitka tried and he had a valiant effort. Both those two guys really left it all out there on the floor, but they just did not have enough to overcome this just dominant defensive performance by Turkiye. And this is the defense that we'd become accustomed to seeing from Turkiye. And again, big time credit to Ataman for making the switch, putting Seamus into the starting lineup. By halftime, Turkiye was leading in points off turnovers 17-1. At halftime. That was the complete change in the game flow. Is this thing was tied up 19-all after the first quarter, and it took a dominant second quarter by Turkiye, who won the second quarter 27-13. They won the points off turnover battle 13-1 in the second quarter alone in this game. The defense in that second quarter was just off the charts insane. Poland could not get any kind of offensive rhythm whatsoever in that frame. And that bled into the rest of the game until kind of the fourth quarter, where Poland started to catch a little bit of a rhythm, and they cut the lead down to 12 at multiple points. And they even at one point cut it down to 8. And credit to Shane Larkin, who, after Poland had a little bit of a run at the end of the third quarter to shave into that lead. It was 65-50 at the end of the third. And then Sipahi unfortunately had a foul on a 3-point shooter right at the top of the fourth quarter. That, gift wrapped Poland 3 free throws. They cut the lead down to 12. And there's a little bit of that, like, okay, here comes Poland. Like, Turkiye is making some mistakes. And then Shane Larkin reeled off 7 straight points at the top of the fourth quarter. I think he finished with 9 total points in the fourth quarter. For the game, he wound up finishing with 13 points on 3 of 7 shooting. He was 6 of 8 at the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. But it was that stretch at the top of the fourth quarter where just you needed to calm things down for Turkiye, and Shane was able to just step up into that role. He knocked down a really big 3 early in the quarter to kind of, settle things, and then got to the free throw line back-to-back times, aced those free throws, on his way to that personal little 7-0 run. And Poland actually managed to cut it to that. That was when, so he kind of weathered that first little run, and then Poland was able to still kind of keep the train moving. Like they were, kind of firing on all cylinders there in the fourth quarter, and got it down to an 8-point lead. They were trailing 78-70. And that's when Korkmaz was able to get a steal. Korkmaz playing in place of Cedi Osman, who suffered what looked like kind of a rough injury. He had one of the Polish players fell into the back of his legs on a possession, and he had to leave the court. He was able to walk off on his own power, so that's always a good sign. Left the court. He went back to the locker room for a little bit, came back later. But Ataman had to rely on Korkmaz a little bit in the absence of Cedi Osman, which was great because, Korkmaz showed up. He had 8 very quick points after being subbed in the game after Cedi Osman had to leave. He had like back-to-back triples, and then another bucket. Was it a bucket or a pair of free throws? Either way, he had 8 quick points late in the third quarter, I believe, to help kind of balloon the lead back out to the double digits to get things to a comfortable point in this game. But near the end, like after things got a little shaky there, Korkmaz got a steal, got it back out to Shane Larkin. Larkin got it to Seamus Hazard for a 3-pointer to kind of stop the bleeding. Score became 81-70. Poland came down. They got some free throws. It was 81-72. Turkiye comes back down on the next end. Shane Larkin finds Osmani for another 3-pointer. Clutch 3. Osmani cans it 84-72. And at that point, there was enough of the breathing room there that Turkiye was able to just keep they got a few more buckets, couple more free throws the rest of the way. And they were able to kind of, not, I don't want to say coast to the victory, because Poland just refused to give up. Hat tip to Poland. They kept it coming. They kept trying to claw into the lead. Those guys absolutely left it all out there on the floor. They just ultimately didn't have enough to overcome the defense of Turkiye, which was back to what the defense that we had grown accustomed to seeing, right? They looked a little tired, a little out of sorts, a little unfocused defensively last game. But this game, the bigs, right? Sengun, Osmani, they were back to being really pesky and effective out there, guarding in pick and roll coverages, jumping out on the perimeter, really making life difficult for the ball handlers operating out of the pick and roll for Poland. And then again, just Seamus setting the tone defensively from the jump, being inserted into the starting lineup. And I want to give a ton of credit to Ataman and Seamus for the defensive switcheroo and slowing down Jordan Lloyd and the team defense. I want to give a ton of credit to Sipahi, honestly, because this late in the tournament, and this speaks, I think, volumes about the chemistry level and the drive to succeed for this Turkish team. Because some players might take a little bit of, take it personally that they lost their starting job to a teammate this late in the running. And Sipahi, who's been, the starter for Turkiye through so much of the tournament, to then be turned around and be, hey, this game, we need Seamus to start. Sipahi could have been upset about that. He could have been in his head. He could have, had a down performance coming off the bench, been frustrated about losing his starting role. None of that. He came in, played a fantastic game. In 16 minutes off the bench, he scored 11 points on 4 of 6 shooting, continued to be an absolute flamethrower from long distance, 3 of 5. He had the final bucket of the game, just adding a little bit more salt to the wound instead of Turkiye running out the clock. They canned one more 3-pointer there at the end. But I think that tells you a lot about Sipahi, right? That he didn't get in his own head about it. He wasn't frustrated about losing his role. They're just in it to win. They just want to win at whatever cost. Doesn't matter who scores, doesn't matter who's racking up the stats. They want to win at the end of the day. That's what Alperen Sengun's echoed multiple times. He doesn't care if he scores 30 or dishes out 15 dimes, or he doesn't care if he walks away with single digits across all of his counting stats columns, right? He's just out there trying to do whatever it takes to win. And speaking about Alperen Sengun, one more thing here before we move on to taking a look ahead at Giannis and Greece coming up in the semifinals. Furkan Korkmaz was asked, after the game about Sengun, right? And Korkmaz basically said that, up to this point in his career, he the best big that he'd ever played with was Joel Embiid, right? And he basically went on to say that he believes that like Sengun is now the best big man that he's ever actually played with, which is incredibly high praise, right? Because, this is, first off, obviously, they're national teammates with each other. They're countrymen, all that. But there's no, Korkmaz doesn't gain anything by saying Sengun is better than Joel Embiid, right? It just shows how good Alperen Sengun has become, that he's even remotely in the same conversation as Joel Embiid at this stage in his career at just 23 years of age. Being mentioned alongside a name like Embiid, or the names like Jokic, Giannis, Luka, these other European legends. And that shows the trajectory, right? We talked about this the other day. That just shows how good Alperen Sengun has become at such an early age. And it still only feels like we're just kind of scratching the surface, which is crazy to think about how much better Alperen Sengun can still get at this stage of his career. Really exciting stuff. And we're about to have another opportunity for Sengun and Turkiye to make a statement and to showcase their ability against Giannis Antetokounmpo and Greece. We're going to get there and talk about it in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right. Turkiye advances to the semifinals of the Eurobasket tournament, where they do indeed have a date with the Greek Freak and the rest of the not so freaky Greeks in the semifinals matchup. Now, what this means, though, very quickly, just to break down how the tournament bracket works. First off, we don't know who's on the other side of the semifinals bracket yet. It'll be the winners out of Germany and Slovenia. So Franz Wagner, Dennis Schroeder, Daniel Tice going up against Luka Doncic. So that's one game. And then Finland, Lauri Markkanen against Georgia, which is, who's Georgia got? Goga Bitadze? Yeah. Goga. I can't remember if there's anybody else on the Georgian team, but those are the two other games that are to be played on Wednesday, for deciding the other half of the bracket, the other semifinals game. But what this means, Turkiye making it to the semifinals game, means that they will, at a minimum, have a chance to play in the bronze medal game. Now, it's not a guarantee that they win a medal yet. They have to win against Greece. And if they win against Greece, if Turkiye wins against Greece, it guarantees that they will win at least either the gold or silver medal. That's how the bracket works. So you have the two semifinals games. The two winners advance to play in the gold medal game, which decides the winner gets gold, the loser gets silver. And then the two losers of the semifinals games play each other in the third place game to decide the bronze medal. So at a minimum, even if Turkiye loses against Greece, which, knock on wood, we're not manifesting that, but at absolute worst case scenario, they will still have a chance to place for a medal for the first time since all the way back, I think it was all the way back in like 2001, something like that, if I'm not mistaken on my history here. So very exciting stuff for how well Turkiye has played to this point in the tournament. They've been on a dominant run. And I'll be honest, of these remaining teams, Greece, Turkiye, Germany, Slovenia, Finland, and Georgia, the overwhelming favorites at this stage are Germany and Turkiye to win gold. They both have the makings of legitimate, like, championship caliber teams with their depth, the top heavy star power, the supporting cast, the role players on both rosters. There's a lot to like about both teams, and ultimately, I'm kind of torn because I would love. I feel like it'd be more exciting to talk about the path of like Sengun, like battling through these like NBA greats, like getting through Giannis and then having to beat Slovenia in the gold medal game, beating Luka to place gold would be such an exciting storyline. But at the same time, I do think Germany's the better team. They're certainly a better team than Slovenia. So Luka's gonna have his work cut out for him trying to topple Germany by himself. Not necessarily by himself. That's disrespectful to the rest of the Slovenian national team. These teams are not just, it's the NBA players and then a bunch of other guys. Like, these are legitimate professional organizations that are playing some incredibly high caliber basketball. And we need to remember that, right? The NBA players are NBA players for a reason. They play in the best league in the world, but these other players, they are absolutely top tier basketball players, the best of the best on the face of the planet as well. And I have to remind myself of that as well. But you do see a little bit of a difference at times when some of the NBA players are out there just kind of doing their thing. And you're like, oh, this is why these guys are in the NBA, right? So that is a dynamic certainly at play. Really quickly on Greece, this is going to be, outside of Serbia in the group stage, this is going to be the toughest opponent that Turkiye has had to face so far. And their dynamic is, in a way, very similar to Turkiye with how they play so heavily through Giannis for everything, right? Like, it's not quite a, heliocentric offense for either of Alperen Sengun or Giannis Antetokounmpo with their respective teams. But each one of these guys have such a heavy hand in everything that both of these teams try to accomplish, and Giannis, he's one of the leading scorers in all of Eurobasket. He's averaging a ridiculous, what was his points per game? Something like, I think he's like averaging just under 30 points per contest. Yeah, 29.8. Second most points per game in Eurobasket. I think he's only trailing Luka, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be an absolute handful to try and defend. And I'm very curious to see what Ataman decides to do, because look, we've already seen him make the decision in this game against Poland to switch out a player in his starting lineup. I would not be shocked if we saw Ataman decide to start Adembona to try and slow down Giannis, because realistically, nobody can slow down Giannis. He's dominant. He's a two-time MVP. He's a world champion for all these reasons, right? He's one of the most unstoppable forces in all of basketball. But if you look up and down the Turkish roster, Adembona is the most physically equipped player to try and match one-to-one what Giannis Antetokounmpo is capable of. But is that worth it? Is it worth it to try and individually match up with Giannis by starting Adembona and trying to match his minutes with Giannis? Or are they better off sticking with their game plan, sticking with Osmani in the starting lineup, providing that offensive floor spacing to allow Alperen Sengun to go to work on offense and to keep the offensive side of things running smoothly? It's going to be a very interesting kind of like, that it's not even a chess battle that way. That's like the first move of the board is, how does Ataman decide he wants to play it? I think there's merit to both arguments, and I'm very curious your thoughts. Would you, like, for this game against Greece, would you rather see Adembona start over Osmani, or would you rather see Turkiye keep the same starting lineup and prioritize their, the chemistry, the consistency that they've had so far, and the offensive floor spacing that Osmani provides? We know that Sengun and Bona have a fantastic chemistry with one another, but it's also no secret that if you take Osmani out, you're playing with two, non-shooters, and that puts a lot more pressure on the spacing for Turkiye offensively to be able to get things done against a Greece team that is going to have Giannis roaming the paint and trying to block everything that happens at the rim and all that. So it might be easier for Turkiye to just try and, we're Stan Van Gundy when we're going to form an effing wall. Like, that just might have to be the strategy, right? Is they might just have to wall up as a team to try to slow down Giannis. And weirdly enough, it might not be the worst idea in the world to try and let Sengun guard Giannis, honestly. I don't know if you want to go that route completely, because then you're going to be taxing Sengun considerably on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting matchup. A lot of different variables at play here. And look, Greece has a ton of guys shooting well over 40%. The role players doing their jobs, playing off of Giannis as he attracts all this attention with his downhill play, with his ability to command double teams. It's going to be a very, very tough opponent. And again, arguably the toughest opponent that they face since dealing with Jokic and Serbia. I will say, kind of, talking about just the head-to-head matchup of Sengun and Giannis, right? It's not quite the same head-to-head matchup as like Sengun and Jokic, for obvious reasons, because those two guys get compared all the time. But this is just another opportunity, right? Another kind of landmark game for Alperen Sengun to add to his resume. It's like, vanquishing these like monsters, right? Where it's like, okay, like, you vanquished Jokic, cool. You've been dominant. You haven't lost a single game through all of Eurobasket group stage. And now you're in the knockout round. So you can't lose these games, right? So you have to, literally win or go home. But, to be able to add this to his resume, right? If he eliminates, beats Serbia and Jokic, right? To place first in their group and to avoid dealing with, an upset against Finland in the first round of 16 in Eurobasket, right? Like that's boom. Beat Giannis and Greece on the way to the medal placing game. Potentially beat Luka or a stacked Germany team. Like this is just adding so much to Sengun's resume to help make him what I hope it will be, a household name this upcoming season in the NBA. And it just shows that he truly is on the same level as these guys. Like that's the conversation that we've been having. That's the conversation that Sengun is forcing us to have. Like we are having this conversation because of the ridiculous productivity that we're seeing out of him. And for him to hopefully be able to carry this momentum, this level of play into the NBA season, I do think this is really beneficial to Sengun because he's playing himself into full-blown game shape right now. And he's only going to have like a week or two off after Eurobasket ends to celebrate, enjoy his gold medal, hopefully, before coming back to the U.S. and being ready for Rockets training camp and preseason and all that. So while other players are going to be getting themselves up to speed and working themselves into game shape for the first 10, 15 games or so of the season, Sengun is there. He's been playing high-level basketball overseas through this Eurobasket tournament, which should hopefully mean he hits the ground running at the start of this NBA season, not like a slow buildup or like, again, working himself back into shape or knocking off the rust after summer, like none of that stuff, right? Sengun should be ready to go to continue this ridiculous dominant stretch that he's on as soon as he switches out the Turkish jersey for his Rockets jersey, swapping the 23 back to the 28, if you will. I want your thoughts on the win against Poland in the quarterfinals. I want your thoughts about the upcoming matchup with Giannis and Greece. Let me know everything, how you're feeling in the YouTube comments. That's going to do it for today's show. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets and Turkiye basketball.